in killing combatants. Therefore, the responses to the survey questions may reflect the general attitude people have towards war. We wanted to know if China's global development will necessitate massive deaths in enemy countries. Will our people endorse that scenario? Will they be for or against it? The fact is, our development refers to the great revitalization of the Chinese nation, which, of course, is not limited to the land we have now, but also includes the whole world. As everybody knows, according to the views propagated by the Western scholars, humanity as a whole originated from one single mother in Africa. Therefore, no race can claim racial superiority. However, according to the research conducted by most Chinese scholars, the Chinese are different from other races on Earth. We did not originate in Africa. Instead, we originated independently in the land of China. Therefore, we can rightfully assert that we are the product of cultural roots of more than 1 million years, civilization in progress of more than 10,000 years, an ancient nation of 5,000 years, and a single Chinese entity of 2,000 years. This is the Chinese nation that calls itself descendants of Yang and Wang. During our long history, our people have disseminated throughout the Americas and the regions along the Pacific Rim. And they became the Indians in the Americas and the East Asian ethnic groups in the South Pacific. We all know that an account of our national superiority during the thriving and prosperous Tang dynasty, our civilization was at the peak of the world. We were the center of the world civilization, and no other civilization in the world was comparable to ours. Later on, because of our complacency, narrow-mindedness, and the self-enclosure of our own country, we were surpassed by Western civilization, and the center of the world shifted to the West. In reviewing history, one may ask, will the center of the world civilization shift back to China? Actually, Comrade Liu Huagang made it similar points in early 1980s. Based on an historical analysis, he pointed out that the center of world civilization is shifting. It shifted from the east to Western Europe, and later to the United States. Now it is shifting back to the east. Therefore, if we refer to the 19th century as the British century, and the 20th century as the American century, then the 21st century will be the Chinese century. Wild applause fills the auditorium. Our Chinese people are wiser than the Germans because fundamentally our race is superior to theirs. Now he's talking here of the Germans, folks, during World War II, specifically the Nazis. As a result, we have a longer history, more people, and larger land area. On this basis, our ancestors left us with the two most essential heritages, which are atheism and great unity. It was Confucius, the founder of our Chinese culture, who gave us these heritages. These two heritages determine that we have a stronger ability to survive than the West. That is why the Chinese race has been able to prosper for so long. We are destined not to be buried by either heaven or earth, no matter how severe the natural, man-made, and national disasters. This is our advantage. Take responses to war as an example. The reason that the United States remains today is that it has never seen war on its mainland. Once its enemies aim at the mainland, the enemies would have already reached Washington before its Congress finishes debating and authorizes the President to declare war. But for us, we don't waste time on these trivial things. No, they have greater things in mind. Maybe you have now come to understand why we recently decided to further promulgate atheism. If we let theology from the West into China and empty us from the inside, if we let all Chinese people listen to God and follow God, who will obediently listen to us and follow us? If the common people don't believe Comrade Hu Jintao is a qualified leader, begin to question his authority and want to monitor him, if the religious followers in our society question why we are leading God in churches, can our party continue to rule China? The first pressing issue facing us is living space. This is the biggest focus of the revitalization of the Chinese race. In my last speech, I said that the fight over basic living resources, including land and ocean, is the source of the vast majority of wars in history. This may change in the information age, but not fundamentally. Our per capita resources are much less than those of Germany's back then. See, he's justifying the need for preemptive war, just like Hitler justified his need for war against Poland and France. Living space, Lebensraum. In addition, economic development in the last 20 plus years had a negative impact, and climates are rapidly changing for the worse, and that's true. Our resources are in very short supply, another true statement. Our environment is severely polluted, especially that of our soil, water, and air. Not only our ability to sustain and develop our race, but even its survival is gravely threatened to a degree much greater than faced Germany back then. Anybody who has been to Western countries knows that their living space is much better than ours. They have forests alongside the highways, while we hardly have any trees by our streets. Their sky is often blue with white clouds, while our sky is covered with a layer of dark haze. Their tap water is clean enough for drinking, while even our groundwater is so polluted that it can't be drunk without filtering. They have few people in their streets, and 2 or 3 people can occupy a small residential building. In contrast, our streets are always crawling with people, and several people have to share one room. Many years ago, there was a book titled Yellow Catastrophes. It said that due to our following the American style of consumption, our limited resources would no longer support the population, and society would collapse once our population reached 1.3 billion. Now our population has already exceeded this limit, and we are now relying on imports to sustain our nation. It's not that we haven't paid attention to this issue. The Ministry of Land Resources is specialized in this issue. But we must understand that the term living space, Lebensraum, is too closely related to Nazi Germany. The reason we don't want to discuss this too openly is to avoid the West's association of us with Nazi Germany, which could in turn reinforce the view that China is a threat. Therefore, in our emphasis on He Sin's new theory, human rights are just living rights. We only talk about living, but not space, so as to avoid using the term living space. From the perspective of history, the reason that China is faced with the issue of living space is because Western countries have developed ahead of Eastern countries. Western countries established colonies all around the world, therefore giving themselves an advantage on the issue of living space. To solve this problem, we must lead the Chinese people outside of China so that they can develop outside of China. Would the United States allow us to go out to gain new living space?